Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mariana and I make videos about art and self-expression, writing, witchcraft, and everything in between that helps you process the highs and lows in life while I document this journey. Naturally, since I've been kind of sharing more of my occult side, I wanted to talk a little bit about my spiritual awakening and all the things that led me to this path. There have been so many of them along the way since I was a kid up until now. This will be like a spiritual awakening starter pack. So I'll be splitting this video up into sections. It'll be divided by books, YouTubers, oracle decks, movies and TV shows, and I will leave chapters in this video so you can kind of bop around and jump to sections that you're more interested in. But yeah, I hope this gives you guys some inspiration and maybe we align on some interests. I'm sure we do because some of these are pretty predictable. I won't waste any time. Let's just dive right in and I'll start with books. Books have been instrumental to me along my journey. It's where I've discovered most of my interests, from the time I was a kid up until now. And I don't think it'll come as a surprise to anyone that the first book series that got me excited about the world of magic and the occult and fantasy was the Harry Potter series. Harry Potter introduced me to the world of fantasy and witchcraft, which I just knew felt like something for me. I wanted to be at Hogwarts. I wanted to study magic, but I think it was because I knew from a young age that magic meant like power, inner power. It's like how Harry found his voice and his courage and his family. And that's what those themes of magic really brought up for me even at a young age. And similarly, I fell in love with the Spiderwick Chronicles. This series follows three siblings who move to this house and discover their uncle's Spiderwick field guide in the attic, which opens up the world of magic around them. These books open up, or the first one does, with a letter from the author saying that these kids actually had written to them about their experience with fairies. So I thought this book was its true story when I first read it as a kid, and I think it was loosely based on the author and the illustrator's real experiences and their belief in the fairy world as kids. This opened me up to this idea that the magical world was all around us. Fairies were the insects around you, and that these magical worlds existed in your backyard. And then also the illustrations in these books were so instrumental in my love for art. Tony Diterlizzi's illustrations are incredible. His field guide, the field guide specifically for this book series, changed my life and had me outside every day looking for fairies. And then naturally, as a kid who was obsessed with magic and witchcraft, I developed into a more moody teenager who started looking down the self-help rabbit hole. But there's a specific writer in particular that I've come back to time and time again whose work really resonates with me, and that's Miss Brené Brown. So Daring Greatly is predominantly about unlearning the fear of being seen or judged and stopping yourself from doing what you are in this world to do. She talks about the fact that if you want to actually see progress in your relationships, in your career, in your life, in your dreams, you have to step into your vulnerability and your true authentic self. Otherwise, no one will ever see you. And we often get stuck in these oh, it's embarrassing, it's cringe to put yourself out there. But Daring Greatly is doing it anyway because it's what you want to do. It's what your soul craves. And when you do, you're rewarded amazingly for it. So this really resonated with me because feeling afraid is something I've felt my whole life when it comes to self-expression and speaking my mind. And by doing this practice, I'm kind of honoring what I learned in this book, and I think everyone could get something out of it. This book is probably my favorite self-help book of all time, or the one that I kind of turn to the most. I've completely annotated and made my Big Magic follows a lot of those same themes of vulnerability and authenticity, but it's a little bit more catered towards creativity, self-expression, and that's why I think this is an artist's holy grail and Bible. This book got me out of a huge writer's block and artist's block. She basically describes creativity as something you can download from the universe gift to you, but if you don't take it, if you don't get out of your own way and stop being a perfectionist and looking for reasons to resist your art, you will never make it. Or someone else might. If you're creative and you're looking for reasons to tap into your creativity beyond fear, this really elaborates more on this. And that's why I think these two go together and will change your life. I wanted to include The Life You Were Born to Live by Dan Millman because I just think this book is so much fun. I see a lot of the same numbers synchronistically in my life all the time, and that developed into an interest in numerology and kind of what numbers say about your relationship with the universe or your life path. This book specifically uses your birth number, so the day you were born, the year you were born, totaled up together to tell you about your life path. It tells you about your life purpose and what you're here on this planet to do, but also what your shadow side is and how you have to combat that to be able to achieve your dreams. This was so freakishly accurate for me specifically. I believe my number is a 415. If you're ADHD like I am, and sometimes it's hard to read through a whole self-help book if not every chapter resonates with you, this book is straightforward. You get exactly what you need out of it in your chapter. And then last but not least, Women Who Run with the Wolves, Myths and Stories of the Wild Woman Archetype by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. This book is another Bible for witchy women everywhere, or just women in general. She uses myth and folklore to teach you all about finding your instinctive wild nature again. It's full of practical psychological insights. It was such a pivotal moment for me reading this because it kind of taught me to reclaim my wild, untamed self. It says here, a deeply spiritual book. She honors what is tough, smart, and untamed in women. She venerates the female soul. I don't want to give away too much. It's just magic. Everybody should read it. So that brings me to my next section, which is oracle decks. As much as I love tarot, oracle cards changed the game for me. I love that oracle cards don't have specific structure most of the time. It's really about your intuitive insight and what you pull from the images in the cards. I think the first I want to mention is Sacred Rebels by Alana Fairchild, illustrated by Autumn Sky Morrison. The first time I sat to do a reading with these cards, I was in one of the lowest places of my life. These cards are super personal and empowering. They're all about breaking free from your limitations, rebelling by trusting your unique gifts and path, and regaining your confidence. The writing is so detailed that you can really get anything you need out of one card, to be honest, one pull. And there are always usually mantras at the end too, like little prayers that you can do. The whole packaging, everything is gorgeous, and they're very beautifully designed. The Oracle of Seven Energies by Colette Baron Reed. Now these are my favorite oracle cards I've ever worked with. It's my favorite deck. I love everything Colette Baron Reed does. I think she's absolutely brilliant and really tapped into something deeper, and she's helped me along my spiritual path so much. They always feel so aligned, and I believe that's because they're also based on the 7 energy centers, the chakras, to help you understand what's going on in your life on a deeper energetic level. The guidebook is also so clear and easy to understand. Even though it's like so beautifully written, it would be a perfect first starter oracle deck for anyone. And then last but not least, the SoulCards deck 2. This is by Deborah Chapin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. These cards are like truly an artistic masterpiece, but they're not for the beginner. They don't have any guidebook messaging or titles on each of the cards. So you really have to go with your intuitive gut feeling when you see the imagery. And I think what I love so much about that is it really challenges you to be your own decipher, to tap into your own wisdom to figure out what the card's trying to tell you. And it's a great challenge. For me, it helped so much with my spiritual awakening because I felt like I always needed someone else to give me the answers or to decide for me what what a card was telling me or what I needed to do. These cards really ask you to do that for yourself. Now, I was chronically online growing up, and in my teenage years, I felt so isolated and alone, and I couldn't always connect with people I was, in school with, and I was looking for that group of people that were interested in spirituality or self-discovery and growth and working through a lot of these more esoteric themes. But it was hard to find, obviously, that community. It's still hard for me to find. I found a lot of that through watching YouTubers who were making that kind of content. One of the first people I discovered was Jonah Hinton. She has millions of subscribers. She's been doing this for years, but she's a Swedish YouTuber who moved out of the city into the village in Sweden where her ancestors come from. She speaks to the honesty of the highs and lows, dealing with the harsh winters and the mosquito-filled summers. You can tell that she's really living her true calling and living simply in the ways that we used to, and that in a forgotten way. Also, her cinematography is like no one competes. She captures the beauty of Sweden like nobody else, and her music choice is phenomenal. If you want to capture a vibe or feel like you're immersed in this beautiful, fantastical world, she is the queen of that. For more of my artist viewers, specifically more of the visual arts, Peruvian artist Caro Arevalo, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is one of my other favorite YouTubers that I found during my spiritual path. She takes you on the journey of her artwork process, and her artwork is beautiful, often to do with nature or the spiritual links in the universe that link us all together, from the fauna to our human connection to the universe. She makes a lot of these beautiful spherical cycle paintings that are like truly beyond my comprehension. She shares her cultural influence, her life experiences, her spiritual path, but then combines it with the practical. She's someone who's very diligent in her work process. And I think for me, that's really important in my spiritual awakening, to find people that are balancing the spiritual with the practical. Lastly, I have two YouTube creators that I discovered more recently, but have been so instrumental in my spiritual awakening at this stage in my life. And that's YouTuber Luna Leodrune. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, but I love Luna's content. She shares very simple and informative videos about witchcraft and also working with the seasons and the wheel of the year, but also she makes it very tangible for the everyday witch. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. It's really about applying different ritualistic tools in a way that everyone can use and utilize. She does that so beautifully. You can tell she's a breath of fresh air for the spirituality community. I also love her travel videos when she takes you to different parts of the world and talks about the history there. She's very interested in folklore, and she's super knowledgeable too. So you get a lot of information out of her, but also enjoying her very whimsical storytelling. She's got like a perfect combination of everything. Brianna Shambrook I discovered this year, and I just think her channel is so inspiring. She, brought so much love back into the earth and her land. She shares that experience, her experience with her familiars, her cats, and then also just like very basic, knowledgeable, and easy to understand how-tos for witchcraft. She kind of narrows everything down. But then also my favorite videos she does is she takes you to witch camps that she goes to and like how she's found sisterhood. I love that her channel, for me, helped with my spiritual awakening, is that she's kind of discovering all of this as she's documenting as well. It's helped me get in front of the camera more myself and like talk about my own path. All right, next we're going to do movies and TV shows. The first movies that come to mind, had to shout out Miyazaki, but specifically my favorite movie, probably of all time, Spirited Away. It's really a movie about a girl coming into her own. It's also incredibly beautiful and mysterious, and even as a kid I remember getting goosebumps because there's just so much of that balance of the light and dark that exists in our lives, even no matter whether you're a kid or an adult, that duality that exists around us, how we navigate the highs and lows of life. It's such a universal story. It feels like you're stepping into a dream, which it's so good. Kiki's Delivery Service is like a must watch for any witch. I watched it at the perfect age. I think I was also like 12 or 13, and Kiki's in that age. She's 13 and has to train her witch powers, go off by herself for a year and develop her magic. It's about getting past self-doubt and fear. Again, same theme keeps coming up. I'm definitely fascinated by this theme in particular in my spiritual awakening, but it's like her navigating this adventure by herself and knowing that she can do it. Like, she doesn't need anyone but herself.
You're on your own at 13. That's pretty exciting. To be completely independent and a witch, impressive.
But she meets people along the way and community, which is so important. And there's one character in particular in this movie that inspired me so much. She's this older artist who lives in the forest and becomes kind of like a friend to Kiki. I always wanted to be her so badly.
I love to paint so much. I'd paint all day until I fell asleep right at my easel.
It's also a movie about releasing perfectionism and like letting life just sort of guide you. There's a lot about insecurity too. She feels ugly a lot of the time. Then in the end, she develops her confidence more. So yeah, there are so many underlying themes in every Miyazaki film, but this one's also just a really cozy, witchy vibe. I won't bore you guys with more Harry Potter, but this would have gone in this list as well, like anything Harry Potter. But Lord of the Rings comes up for me specifically as one of the movies that changed my life and sparked my spiritual awakening for themes of resilience and dealing with grief and loss, finding community and friendship. Frodo, the lead in these films, is the unexpected hero. He's a humble hobbit, but he ends up being the hero of this story, and there's so much to be said about the way that he finds his power.
I will take the ring to Mordor.
Honestly, sometimes for me, what sparks my spiritual awakening is just when something has this atmosphere to it that I come back to time and time again to remind me that like the world is magical, but also humans are magical for coming up with these incredibly in-depth worlds of fantasy. You know, Tolkien is a genius, and he really captured a vibe that is incomparable. So I come back to these movies all the time when I need a reminder that the world is magical. The next movie that inspired my spiritual awakening was quite recent, and I don't know how much I can say about this movie without giving it away, and that is Everything Everywhere All at Once. This movie, I mean, it touches on so many themes that were incredibly powerful for me at the time I watched it, dealing with issues of ancestral trauma and the wounds that we pass on as family members to each other or culturally, issues around identity, being first-generation immigrant children, and then also relationships between mothers and their daughters. It's also a coming-of-age story of a woman later in her life discovering her strength and power and her spiritual awakening.
In 48 hours or
I think, to me, it's one of the most spiritual movies I've ever seen.
I did forget to include Lost when I was filming, and I can't believe that. I'm pinching myself now because we just finished watching that full series from beginning to end, and it really is a spiritual show. I know it looks like it's just a show about people that are abandoned after a plane crash on an island, but it's really a deep character analysis. All of them are going through their own spiritual journey and awakening of sorts.
Why do you find it so hard to believe?
Why do you find it so easy?
It's never been easy!
The characters are all so interesting. They all have their own challenges. They all have their own previous lives before the plane crash. It's a mystery show, but also full of spirituality and eye-opening transformation. And it's really divisive. Like, some people feel very strongly that it ended poorly. All I'll say is my husband and I loved it from the beginning to end, and it changed my life. So yes, I had to add Lost on this list.
So that's everything in my spiritual awakening starter pack. I could dive into each of these categories way more, but I just wanted to introduce a little bit of what inspired me along my own path, and hopefully it inspires you to think about what's helped you. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content from me. Thanks for watching. Bye.